Yeah, fear of emotion. I remember you talking about that you also have to fear all your fears of siblings and in the family. I've got 14 siblings, so how much the action I have blockages to my emotions.
How many of those siblings are older than you?
They all are.
Mm. Yeah, a lot of mummies and daddies there, eh? Yeah. This is why I call it the family of origin, because it's not just your mum and dad, but all of their treatment of you too, which is a reflection of mum and dad's emotion. Mm. So what do you do? What do you think you do?
Feel all the emotion.
Well, yeah. In the end, I think you sort of feel like, well, because I've got 14 siblings, it means I've got 14 times more work to do, and that's not true. All of our souls are like a bucket, right? That's full of stuff, right? Now, if I draw in red the crappy stuff, a lot of it's full of the crappy stuff, right? So it's just all of our hurt, and then also a lot of, and then perhaps if I draw it a different way, I'll just put them around the other way because this is usually the layers that have to come off first. And then there's the facade that I put on my hurt, right? And we'll talk a lot more of that in the next groups that we have in May and June. So there I go, and then obviously there's a bit of real self left in there somewhere, but unfortunately it's pretty buried a lot of the times under these other things. Now, how much emotion am I going to have to address is your question. And there's a fear that drives the question. Can you see what the fear is?
I can feel a little bit of it.
What's the fear?
Facing it.
Yeah, you basically want to know how long it's going to take, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you use the mic up higher so we can hear you. Yeah, so you want to know how long it's going to take. Now, how long does it take to empty a glass of water?
In an instant.
Well, does it? Like, I don't know if it's an instant.
I can Google it pretty quick.
Now, if I got a truckload of water, how long does it take to empty that?
Yeah, more time.
No, the answer really is to both questions, as long as it takes.
As a piece of string.
That's the answer, as long as it takes. Now, a person who truly wants to love and is truly exercising their will to love understands that how long it takes doesn't matter. How much is there doesn't matter. They will just keep doing it and keep doing it till it's done. Now, most of you don't want to have that answer. And this is why you ask a lot of questions about your emotion, because you don't want to know you want to know how long it's going to take so you can plan for that. You want to know how intense it's going to be so you can plan for that. And you want to know how much it's going to impact your life so you can plan for that. And this tells me that actually what you're doing is what? Just being afraid of how long each one of those things are.
Making excuses.
Yeah, they can become excuses. That's the reality. Now, if this is a, soul full of emotion, to me, it depends primarily on a couple of factors, right? The first factor is how much is in there. So if I've got a truckload, then obviously, which I've had, obviously it's going to take a while. Right? And it might take 20 years. Is it worth doing? Yes, it is. If it takes 50 years, is it worth doing? Yes, it is. See, it's worth doing no matter how long it takes, right? Second thing is the other factor, which you do have control over, is how fast you do it. Isn't it? Now, if you had a truckload and you just had it in a tipper truck, you just go, and it, done. So if we were capable of doing that emotionally, a truckload or a beaker full doesn't really make any difference. But let's say you had a 500-litre bottle and you go drip, 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 once every 10 years.
Then can I ask God to be the truck for a moment?
Well, God wants you to deal with it, and God knows you can deal with it as rapidly as you're able to cope with the emotion. And when I say able to cope with the emotion, God knows you can cope with all emotion, but God also knows that there's layers of emotion. There's layers of facade that have to come off before you'll feel your hurt, and there's layers of hurt that have to come off before you'll feel your real self. Now, how fast that happens is completely up to you, not God. It's not up to God at all. It's up to you. You want someone else to help you.
Yes, I do.
Which is a fear. Now, God's going to help you, because anybody who's good would help you, right? But he's not going to allay your fear for you while he does it, because that would be an addiction that he'd be meeting, and he can't do that. So he's not going to rub away this fear you have. You follow? So you're going to have to address this fear you have, that it might take 10 years and it might be very painful for 10 years. And you're going to have to address that fear. But is it worth it? Now, at this stage, I don't know if you believe it is. Because your natural response is, no, it's not. Right? And that's the reason why you're not getting started. Because you're not really sure whether 10 years of release is actually worth the potential outcome. Now, at this stage, the other problem with that is you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You don't know how good it's going to be for your life, right? You just have someone like me telling you, and, you know, who knows, I could be an idiot, right? I could be. You're going to have to determine it for yourself, aren't you, whether it's worth it. So what I would do if I was you is I'd engage one or two experiences, see whether it changes some of your life. If it now appears to you to be worth doing, then surely the next step would be to do it as rapidly as you could possibly do it, so that you're not left with this emotion inside of you affecting negatively your life. You follow? So we need to stop asking the questions of how long, how much. Does he agree? For the people in the video, one of our babies in the audience just had a, what would you call it? Sort of like, right in that moment. Yeah. So the real feeling we need to address is, look, this is worth it. It takes me however long it takes me. The reality is, for me, like I started my process when I was 33 years old. I'm now 53 years old. I'm 53 years old tomorrow. So far I've been doing it 20 years. And do you see me giving up anytime soon? Not really, hey? Even though it's taken that long. So I started this process. I was living in South Australia, and yeah, my life's changed immensely since then, since that time, but it's taken 20 years so far, and I'm still not done. All right? So when you guys ask me, how long is it going to take? Is it going to be over in 3 years? I go, who cares? Like, it's over when it's over. What matters is that you do it, because you're going to have to do it sooner or later, whether it's here on earth or in the spirit world. You're going to have to do it. Right? Or the law of compensation is going to grind you into dealing with things over thousands of years. So it's far better to do it God's way just over a few years, even if it takes you 20. If you think about like the books written by Robert James Lees, it took Afra 32 years or something. And that was in the spirit world. It took him 32 years. For most of you, looking at a project like that is daunting, right? But if you really had any perspective, you'd see, oh, well, you know, if I live forever, 32 years is not very long, is it? It's not very long. The sooner I get started, the sooner I'll be finished. The faster I do it, the sooner I'll be finished. Yeah. So I do feel, though, that it is one of the reasons why people don't choose to feel emotion, because they feel that it's all going to be too much, it's going to take too long, it's going to be forever, and as a result, and they don't measure the potential results at the end, or even the actual results at the end, and they don't even have any conviction or faith that the actual results are, you know, will apply to them. And so in the end of the day, they decide the best thing to do is not start. And that's what you've got to be very careful of, deciding, not starting. There's a certain amount in there. How long it takes, dependent on you, really. Really, it's dependent on how much is in there, but it's also dependent on you and how rapidly you're willing to experience how much is in there. And as I've said to you, I've taken 20 years so far, so are you ready, potentially, for a 20-year project? Ironically, you know, when you meet an addiction, a 20-year project seems like nothing. Many of you ladies have had you have given birth 3 times. There's 3 20-year projects. Is it not? 3 20-year projects, and you didn't give it a thought. You just went ahead and did it, right? And then when I say dealing with emotion might be a 20-year project, you go, oh, 20 years of that. Right? Can you see, when we meet addictions, 20-year project is like nothing. When we're not meeting our addictions and we're having to confront them, 20-year project now seems like forever. So again, it's perspective driven by feelings and emotions inside of us. So if you just look at it like, I'm giving birth to the real me, and I've got 20 years to sort myself out, then that'd be a good start. And if it takes that long, it takes that long. But after a few years, you'll feel the benefits of it, if you do it the right way, God's way. You'll feel the benefit of it, and then you'll be motivated to continue. Yep. Glinda, you want to...
Basically, you just answered it. I was going to say, even though it's a 20-year project, you would feel benefits immediately, wouldn't you, if you really healed an addiction? So
yeah, like if I look at my 20-year project so far, and I go right back to the beginning, and remember, like it was about 7 years into my project, I once saw a person who was a medium, and she said I hadn't begun yet, and that was 7 years into my project. so that was a bit of a surprise. But after I started having the feelings about who I was, and then I realised what she meant. But anyway, before then, the 7 years up to that point even, within probably 3 months or so, I was really starting to see some of the benefits internally and externally, in terms of how I was feeling about myself, how I viewed the world. I can remember the very first time that I ever felt happy in my adult life was within the first year of that process. So yeah, you do feel the benefits, and then of course that gives you faith to continue.
And then feeling God's love would also be very motivating.
Yeah, well, that didn't begin for me until much later, like 7 years or so later. Yeah. Because I was in this phase of feeling like God rejected me and so forth because of leaving a religion and so forth. Yeah, so that didn't happen too much later. But once that happened, yeah, certainly things felt much better after then. Yeah. So...